Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 64 of the Focused and Organized Home Games Podcast. My name is Joseph. Today is Monday, January 11th, 2021, and I'm here with Yazid, as always.
Hello.
Hello, Yazid. Today we're going to be talking about a bunch of home game stuff. We have a bunch of goals for 2021 that I kind of vomited. There we go. Last week. It was a long, kind of wild list, so we're going to go through that today in a more project managery type fashion. That's pretty much the whole focus for today in terms of home games topics. And before that, what's up with you, Yazid?
Crazy week, but for me it was okay. I have a dog story to tell, actually.
Okay. The weekly dog check-in?
The weekly dog checkup. So this week, Wednesday of this week is my dog's final obedience test. If she passes it, she's certified through AKC that she is a good dog. So like a lot was riding on this one, right? But this past week we met our arch rival in the form of a small dog while we were doing what's called a neutral dog, which is basically you take your dog and you walk, and a handler takes what's called a neutral dog and they walk in the other direction. And the idea is that your dog doesn't react to their dog. Literally, your dog is neutral to that dog. It's not like excited to see it. It's not like aggressive. It's just like, that is a dog and I'm just going to keep going with my handler. Me. My dog is very good at this, except for she hates small dogs. Guess who they used last week?
Was it a
as
small dog?
Neutral dog. It was a small dog. It was such a cute little dog. It was like this big. People who don't know how big my hands are, imagine a football and then shrink it just like a little bit in. And that's like how big the dog was. It was so small. My dog was like, I'm going to kill this thing. And she really went for it. And I really had to like sit down to like pull her back. But afterwards, my instructor told us about that dog. And that dog has been to 7 homes. And it keeps getting sent back and then like accepted into a new home because it keeps biting its owners because his first owner beat the dog. And so the dog is very scared of dudes. And so she had us like go up to the dog. She had us like go up to the dog slowly and see if it would bite at us. And it didn't bite at me. And we gave it some treats and then she asked us to pet it. And when we went to go and pet it, I was like, put my hand on its side and I realized like it's so small that I could wrap my hand around it almost. Like 50% of it is like in here. And it's like I was wrapping like 75% of it around when I was grabbing it. And it was so different than my dog, because my dog's so like thickly built and muscled that I can like thump her on the side and she's just like, yes, this is great. But that dog was so small, I was like just super gentle with it. And it reminded me that like dogs are wild. They're crazy how varied dogs are, because that dog is a dog but so small in comparison to my dog.
Yeah, Zenobia's parents also have a very hamster-like small dog, and it's hilarious comparing that to their other dog they used to have, which was an Akita. It's like a giant killing machine that wouldn't let me out in the backyard for the entire life of the dog. So yeah, you're right, dogs are indeed wild.
Yeah, it was kind of cool getting to see it, because she was saying that this is the 7th owner and so far it hasn't bit anyone, and she's only started working with it with this owner. So she seems to be doing a pretty bang up job on getting this thing to stop biting people. And it didn't even bite at me. It did bark at me, but that's because I'm a dude who's wearing a hat, and I probably looked like a dude, if that makes sense.
No, I get you. You do look rather dude-ish, you know?
Yeah.
Especially with the hat. Very dude-like. So after obedience training, you're fully done taking her to classes and stuff? Or like, is there any kind of a...
After obedience school is straight into agility school.
What does that entail?
So agility, dog agility, I don't know if you've seen it, but like they do it on like the dog shows. Agility is the one where they have like the obstacle course. So it's like weave in between the poles and like jump through over the things, like through the tunnel. And it's like she'll do all of that, or she'll run all of that.
How do you practice for that?
I don't know. I haven't done any of it yet.
I wonder if you just have to like take her to the park, be like, okay, pretend that there's something here.
I've taught her to jump over things, but basically like what I was told was obedience builds trust between you and your dog, and then agility builds confidence in your dog. So your dog becomes confident in itself because it needs to do all these physically demanding things, and just doing those physically demanding things makes your dog feel like it can do more physically demanding things, which it can.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Then after that, I need to talk to them and find a search and rescue school, and then off to search and rescue we go.
Nice. That's a bunch of stuff I would never do. So cool.
You could. There's nothing unique about me as a person, just the willingness to do it.
I'm not looking for your motivational speech. I put my pants on one leg at a time, guys.
You know what? I don't. I put them on 2 legs at a time. All right.
Nice. It's very
No,
impressive.
I don't. It's 1 leg at a time. Can you imagine?
I haven't put on pants in months, dude.
Sorry.
When's the last time I went to an office? I've been wearing sweatpants forever. Anyway, speaking of an office, I got a standing desk this week. Ooh. That's been my big change. I worked on home games a bunch too, and I feel like it's a related thing. I have like a very for some reason, when I stand up while writing code, I feel kind of like agility training for a dog. I'm more confident in my ability to write code. Like I'm dominating the code because I'm standing over it. Mm-hmm. So the standing desk really helps me with productivity, which has been nice this past week. But yeah, nice. I think I'm becoming a full-time standing desk guy. I'm standing right now as we record this.
Do you have like a little standy mat there too?
They offered me one as like a free gift with the desk. One of them was a hammock, so I put a hammock underneath my desk and I could sleep under here. But no, one of the things they offered was a little mat that I can stand on, but I didn't get one because I think it's kind of silly. I'm just on carpet, so whatever. I don't wear shoes.
The one thing I will say, because I have a sit-stand desk too, and hard on your knees after 7 hours, I will say.
Yeah, well, I do I'll do breaks basically where I'll check emails or do non-writing code stuff when I'm not standing, but when I'm standing I need to be doing something. Mm-hmm. I can't be in a meeting standing. I mean, I guess this right now is a meeting standing because we're whatever, but it's different because I'm not working, you know. Mm-hmm. But
I'll do a stand one next time. Now that I know we're doing standing one, I'll do a stand one next time. Interestingly, I also like to stand when I'm writing code, but I do when I'm like working on home games or like working on a side project, that's when I'll stand. But when I'm like working, I don't stand. I just use a different keyboard.
It doesn't deserve the standing energy.
No, I have a work specific keyboard that I use, so I switch out which keyboard I'm using, and that's like the mental signature that like, oh, you're working now.
Yeah, I get that.
There's like a different tactile feel in everything.
Yeah, I do that too. I have a specific programming keyboard and then like a regular keyboard. One adjustment I had to make was I had to get super long extendo cables for everything. Mm-hmm. So before, like, it would keep going up and up, and then I would just hear the tension growing on the cables between my computer and my monitor. Like, oh shit, that's probably not good. It's like at a 45-degree angle, barely holding in. So I had to replace some cables.
How do you like it so far, though?
The standing desk?
Yeah,
it's great. I just because I had a standing desk at my previous job, and then my job before that. So now here in like a home office, it was something that I had to do for myself, which fucking sucked. But no, yeah, it's my favorite way to actually like get stuff done, which is kind of wild. When I first saw standing desks, I thought they were just hippie bullshit. They kind of are, but I still like some hippie bullshit every now and then.
Next, you're gonna replace your chair with a yoga ball and everything.
Oh no. There's a really nice office chair because like Synovia makes fun of me for my chair because it looks like a race car chair and it's fucking stupid, and I have meetings with like serious people. I'm in a DX racer. So there's an office chair I've been looking at, but it's expensive and I'm not in a rush to replace my current one, so whatever. That's the opposite of hippie, expensive office chairs.
Yeah, that's some. I don't know what the opposite of hippie term actually is, but it's that.
It's like a yuppie.
Is that actually opposite of a hippie?
I would imagine a yuppie. It's a young up and coming professional, right? That's the like, oh, you yuppie fucks.
My God,
Starbucks.
Literally, you just blew my mind. I didn't know that's what yuppie was for.
I think that's what it is. I remember I had to look it up a lot when I first moved to Seattle. I was like, I have to be prepared in case someone calls me this.
A yuppie.
Yeah.
Software developers, people who write code, I would never call them professional. All right, software developer people are the people who sit in the dark in sweatpants and write code all day. Yeah. And when the person from the upper floors come down wearing a suit, they're like, ugh.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I've seen someone wear a suit at my job. I don't think ever, which is pretty cool. It's like a very tech thing to say.
Yeah, that very much so is. Also, that's like a West Coast thing to say. From what I understand, the East Coast is different.
That sounds so... Well, I'm sure if you're working at like a bank or something, it'd be different.
Also, I feel like it's different because of the weather. Like, the clothes they wear there is probably like, you know, heavier for the winter weather of like New York City.
Fuck, man. I've always wanted to wear like a full-on suit and then a trench coat over it and walk through like the snow. And there's also a bunch of taxis. Like, I want that. But
you just hang up 2 fingers and taxi. Listen, you and me have the same dreams, Joseph. We're just different people a little bit.
Yeah, I don't live a life anything kind of similar to what I would need to have that full thing going on, but it is nice to think about, you know.
Yeah, like a nice 3-piece suit.
Yeah. What the fuck am I gonna do with a trench coat or whatever in Tucson?
What color is your coat?
It's like a really dark blue, or maybe like a charcoal, or like a tan.
Okay, I could never pull off a tan. I'd go with like a charcoal with like a navy suit or like a black or suit maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I think tan is a bad look for me. The other day I was wearing I tried on some khaki pants, and I asked Synovia what she thought, and then I realized I looked naked because it looked like my skin tone. So I was wearing pants that just really threw off the viewer. So I don't think that's my color.
Have you ever seen the masks that's just a picture of your face on the mask?
I have seen those. I've seen them like slightly off too, so it's like their mouth is not.
That cracks me up. That really cracks me up. But I mean, aside from the suit stuff,
yeah,
I have a confession to make to you.
Okay. I'm
rewatching a TV show.
Ah, very nice. Which one?
Owl House. The Owl House.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's a TV show from Disney, and I really like it a lot. I watched it, and I'm watching it again. And I'm happy I'm watching it again because I legitimately didn't watch 2 episodes in my first viewing of this show. I somehow skipped 2 episodes.
Did you already tell me about this show, or is this a different show?
Nah, I told you about this show. My two of my favorite shows of all time are Adventure Time and The Owl House. So,
okay,
highly recommend both of them. The Owl House is like the opposite of what a normal TV show is like, where like normally the protagonist is like a hardened person and the world is like frilly and happy. In this one, the protagonist is like frilly and happy, and the world is like way more dangerous than she realizes sometimes.
I vaguely remember you telling me about this show.
Yeah, I enjoy it thoroughly, and I'm rewatching it, but I'm almost done with my rewatching, so there is that.
What made you break your rule for this one? Just because you like it so much?
Yeah, also because I didn't know what to do this week. I was waiting on my book to get delivered, which did get delivered, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but like I was looking for something to do. I didn't want to start a new show because I knew I was going to stop watching the new show for this book, because once I get the book, I want to read the book. So I just wanted to like basically I wanted to do something that I knew about, just because I didn't have a game that I wanted to play, and dog sleeps, so like I couldn't interact with dog all the time, so it's like, all right, I have to find something to do, and I just like put on the Owl House. It was okay. Yeah. I missed, like I said, I watched 2 episodes that I never saw before, or if I did see them, I remember 0 of that, so it was kind of cool.
Nice. Do you think you'll break the rule for other shows? Like, are you getting something out of the episodes that you've seen already, or
the episodes I've seen already? Not really, but you and I talked about this, and I know in my heart that I will rewatch The Secret Life of Walter Mitty soon.
Mm-hmm. Would you reread a book?
For
people unaware, Yazid has a rule where he will not watch a movie for a second time or watch a TV show except for Owl House. Just groundbreaking stuff.
I've reread part of the Iliad, but I've never tried to reread the whole thing.
Once it's on the shelf, it's just done with. It's just
Pretty
there for
much.
show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of there for a show, but also like, you know, like you keep all your video games installed all the time.
Well, I just uninstalled a bunch, but yeah, I know.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
but
but I know
don't
what
know.
you're
I like having a thing that I can see that says like I've read these books, because I'll forget that I've read a book sometimes.
Yeah. Well, what about like a ebook thing? Would you just have like a digital library without the clutter of physical books?
I did. I was doing that for a while because I have a Kindle, but I don't really like reading on a Kindle. There's something about just holding a book to me that helps me focus on the book.
Same. Yeah. I don't read much, but when I do read, I like books.
Mm-hmm.
I could just have a PDF on my computer, but it's not the same. Speaking of watching shows that you've already seen, I started watching The Sopranos again this past week. For whatever reason, wanted to just start it up again on HBO, whatever the subscription service is called. Max, whatever the fuck.
There's Max and there's Go, but I think it's on both.
Well, there's also Now, right? There's HBO Max, Go, and Now. Or is that the old one? Doesn't matter.
I don't know. I have HBO, but I don't pay for it. It's for my aunt. So
I signed up for an HBO subscription service that allows me to watch The Sopranos. Whatever it's called, we're watching The Sopranos on it. We're 2 episodes in. I've kind of half watched it before. I watched it as like a very young kid, and I shouldn't have seen any of it. And then I watched it again, maybe when I was like 14, 15, something like that. Didn't really process it still because I wasn't really old enough to appreciate a lot of it. So now I'm watching it as like an adult. So it's kind of like watching it for the first time. That show is really well made. It's one of those things where you watch it and you know how old it is. We also just recently rewatched The Matrix, same kind of a thing, where you watch the thing and you're just like, holy shit. Before this thing was made, this thing didn't exist. Before The Sopranos didn't exist. And when they made this show, they really put a lot of attention into like the characters and kind of setting up all this stuff around it and making sure that it was really well shot and everything looks right and everything is correct. They invested heavily. And here I am 22 years later watching this show and it still looks great. Like the quality stuff just lasts throughout time, you know? Seeing something like The Sopranos and being like, fuck, it's The Sopranos, you know?
Yeah.
Like in 50 years, people will be watching.
Really... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say in 50 years, that show will still be a thing. Like that's because it's so well made. People invested when it was made.
Didn't that show like start, maybe not start, but like, isn't that show like a precursor to like the golden age of television or whatever? Like it was like that show and then there's like a little period and then there was like Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones and like a bunch of other big, huge, like critically acclaimed shows.
I think it was that and The Wire were the stuff that people really liked on HBO, and it was kind of like people realizing that TV could be a good medium for like really good stories and stuff. And yeah, like you said, Breaking Bad and all that. I think it's kind of like the first one of those, like the big, well-made kind of big budget, big things, big pushes from a thing like HBO. Like, no, this is actual good content.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of wild to me that we ever thought that TV wouldn't be that. Especially because, like, long form, you can really get to know the characters and connect to them and stuff. Versus, like, a movie, which is, like, at most 3.5 hours.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you think of shows as, like, sitcoms, like a lot of it, or if you think of just some sort of thing that we're going to put ads into, you know, some content we could put ads into, I wouldn't necessarily think of, like, a drama as being the first thing there, or some really crazy, gripping 8-year story. It's also a big investment if you start a story knowing that it'll take this many, you know, this much time at this kind of a pace to tell our full story. And then the way that TV shows work, that stuff isn't really guaranteed that you'll get a second or third season, so you might end up fucking people over who wanted to see the end of the story.
Firefly.
Yeah. Or there's probably other examples for sure, but yeah, that's one.
That's the first. Yeah, that's the first one I can think of. I don't know though. That show I heard is like super crazy good. I don't really have an interest in watching it, but you should give us updates. Give me updates.
Yeah, well, like I've seen it before, so I know the kind of general story stuff. I guess I would just say, like I said, watching it as an adult, you just kind of pick up on things that you didn't pick up on as a kid, because there's no way that you would as a kid. You don't understand like the nuance of what's happening. When Tony in the beginning, the whole thing is he's with a therapist. He has a therapist. He talks to her a lot about what he does, and that's the whole thing, right? And he's like depressed in the beginning, and him just talking about how, oh well, we can't do that in my life. Like my people can't know I'm in here. Like you don't understand as a kid like why a mafia guy wouldn't be in therapy. Like why that wouldn't be okay. And you realize like, oh, it's because there's like a culture of all this shit and like telling anybody about the crimes that you do. People can't hear about your crimes, you know?
Yeah.
So little basic stuff like that. It's like I'm watching the show actually for the first time, but like I said, I've seen it twice technically.
Nice. Yeah. I'm kind of excited to see how that show goes for you.
Yeah.
One of our friends who's very into anime recommended I try a show called Promised Neverland, which I watched the first episode of, and oh my god,
yeah,
I want to just watch the rest of that show. Honestly,
what's it about?
I don't want to spoil it, but it's like a psychological thriller. At least the first episode hits you pretty hard, but it's like a psychological thriller. It's like totally different than any anime I've ever seen before already, and I've only watched one episode.
I wouldn't expect a psychological thriller from that name.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Listen, I am willing to wait on that show, and then if we would watch it together, I'd be okay with that, because I think you might like that show.
Okay.
Based on the first episode.
I'll watch the first episode this week and I'll report back.
Please do. I am excited to see if we can actually watch this show together, because I don't know how the rest of the show goes, but the first episode's a banger.
It'd be such a bummer. We like set up all this stuff to watch the show together. We get all hyped up, and the second episode is just total ass.
Yeah. That show comes super highly recommended to me. The recommendation I got is that show gives you a constant sense of dread and anxiety, and the season 2 is just coming out, so
I get enough of that in my day-to-day.
It might take it might push you either over the edge or might lower your...
Cool. Well, yeah, I'll look that up and I'll let you know. Shit. You said you had something about a book? I was going to go into another totally separate thing, so you should mention your...
The last thing is I got my copy of Humankind, and I love that
nice.
book.
Yeah, you said last week that was the one about the super optimistic dude talking about how kindness has gotten people through whatever stuff as a society or as a civilization.
Yeah, that book is like. Listen, I think if you read that book, it would challenge your worldview. So I don't know if I'd recommend it for you, but
that's a good thing to challenge my worldview.
I don't know if you want that or not. I think that book is. That book, I think, should be like required reading material for everyone. It's so insanely mind blowing. He like sets up. I'm 100 pages in. Okay. Basically, what he does is he sets up an argument from like research papers, like evidence based research papers, and that they state that like people are bad, and then he takes newer like evidence based research, and then he uses it to refute their points. And then the last thing he does is he looks back at the original study and he breaks that down and is like, and here's where the flaws were, and that's why they came to that conclusion. It's like a weird thing where on some level, I feel like I'm being tricked, but at the same time, like all those papers are published, peer-reviewed, like modern research papers. So it's kind of hard to like trick somebody with that information. So I don't know, man. That book is crazy. I love it. So literally, the prologue to that book blew my mind. Like the prologue to that book told me something that I knew from like history class, but it completely changed the way I like viewed that event in history.
Okay. I have a question. What do you think, like when you say it challenges my worldview, what do you think my worldview is, and how do you think it challenges that?
I think that you are of the opinion that people are not good naturally, or people are generally the way I want to get the book. Can I go get the book?
Sure, I can cut this
part. Give me a second. Cut. Okay.
Cut.
Okay, so basically I'm gonna read you the excerpt from it. So here's what happens. So imagine 2 planets. On planet A, imagine there's like a plane that's crashing, okay? We're on 2 separate planets. On both those planets, a plane is crashing into the water. Okay? So on planet A, the passengers turn to their neighbors to ask if they're okay. Those needing assistance are helped out of the plane first. People are willing to give their lives, even for perfect strangers. On planet B, everyone's left to fend for themselves. Panic breaks out. There's a lot of pushing and shoving. Children, the elderly, and people with disabilities get trampled underfoot. The question is, which planet do we live on currently?
That's A. It'd have to be A. The B can't exist because there is no such thing as people who like totally exist without at least interacting with others. It's not like totally by ourselves. People will naturally group up because that's just like how people are.
Yeah, that's the whole book. That's like part of it. But yeah, anyway, that's like a little piece. But the prologue to that book is about World War II, and like it breaks down something like it breaks down like the effect of what it breaks down what people thought the effect of mass bombing a city does versus what it actually did. And like the juxtaposition between those two is wild. Basically, like before the Blitz happened in London, I don't know if you know what that is. So basically, like the Germans during World War II were like, London is a huge target. We're just going to bomb it like as much as we can. We're going to just try to destroy the city, and we're going to break the morale of the English, and they'll surrender, and then we'll have won World War II, basically, is the German approach. And the British were super worried about that. They're like, what do we do? What do we do? Like the people are going to go crazy. They're going to panic. They're not going to know what's going on. And what actually happened was that the British became super chilled out and like very helpful to one another, and like the suicide rate tanked, and like a bunch of other stuff happened, and they actually were more productive during that period of time than they were before that period of time, like in terms of like making weapons and preparing to like mobilize for war. And then when the Americans and British bombed like almost every German city, the same thing happened where like the Germans were more productive because of the like not because of the bombing, but kind of because of the bombing. Like during that kind of atrocity, people were like more productive, and they put out more planes and more tanks and more material for war than before the bombing, versus like the control group of cities that weren't bombed. But at the same time, it was like the British actually commissioned a study during the Blitz to say like, hey, what is the effect on our population? And that study came back and said like, actually, people are really nice to each other right now, and like all these like positives are happening. But the dude who received that research paper then turned to Churchill and said like, you know, the Blitz is really working. Like they're really damaging our morale. It's like literally like the leaders at the time twisted the actual research into something that it wasn't.
So then how is that so the argument is that people are good? Like what's the argument the book is overall making?
The argument is that people aren't overall, the argument of the book is that people are overall pretty decent. Like people are good to one another, or good in general, generally speaking.
And the fact that people were more like energized after being attacked was proof of them being good to each other?
Well, that's his prologue argument. Basically, like that's just setting the stage for the rest of the argument. And then like I'm not like all the way through the book. I have like I'm a fourth of the way through the book, sorry. So I still have like a long way to go. Yeah. But he starts like break down like piece by piece, like here's like Lord of the Flies. Like you read Lord of the Flies, correct?
No.
Okay. So Lord of the Flies is a book about these little boys who get stranded on an island, and they go crazy and they start killing one another and like set the island on fire and stuff like that. And the dude actually went out to do some research because he was like, there has to have been some scenario where young boys were stuck on an island. And he actually found one, and it's 6 boys who got stuck on an island off the Atlantic coast in Africa, off the coast of Tonga. Mm-hmm. And I think that's in Africa. It might be in the Polynesia. I'm not 100%. But at any rate, he found that the 6 boys who got stuck on the island were insanely cooperative, and they were actually very healthy by the time that they got rescued. And they made it 15 months on that island alone, completely left to their own devices. So it's like this basically like he juxtaposes like this idea that people aren't good versus the reality of like when you look at the research or you look at the evidence, like people are generally pretty good. At least that's been the first fourth of the book.
Yeah, but you can act in a way that someone says is like, oh, that's morally correct, but it's because they're doing it out of like necessity. Cooperating with other humans is in your best interest. It's not because like you're selfish. You're not necessarily a good person.
I think he'll address that later on in the book because that's one of the things he said he would talk about. So I don't know what the evidence about that is, but I do know that even very young children show altruism towards one another and just in general. So there is like I know not from reading this book, but like just from external information that I'm aware of, is that even young kids are willing to share with one another, and they don't really get anything out of sharing, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah, well, keep us updated. You know, that's the new Home Games book club with Mankind. Speaking of kind of like weird moral questions, we watched the show on Netflix this past week, and it was kind of a similar, not similar at all, really. So it was this moral question of basically, it's called The Push, and it's some big social whatever thing made by some famous guy. I don't know. But it's this thing where they basically orchestrate this big fake event, and this is all real, and they get this person to come in and kind of help with this event. And then through little acts of like manipulating everything, they try to get this person to kill someone, like to in their head actually kill someone. They don't know the whole thing is fake, right? But basically they start with little things of like make them feel inferior to everybody, so that like put them in regular clothes. Don't tell them that everybody here is going to be dressed up. So people here are wearing these like suits, and so they feel lesser than, and then start to make it so like get them to do things that they shouldn't do with just little things, like get them to help you with this, and then get them to do the thing incorrectly, like mark the meat appetizers as vegetarian, and do little things like this to like the slippery slope into whatever, to the point where you can manipulate them into murder. Pushing this dude off of a building. And it's this like super crazy thing of seeing how people like basically succumb to pressure and like social pressure. And there's an interesting thing about how they got candidates for this show, and one of them was super interesting. It was just we call them in for the audition, and they're like the first person who comes in for the audition, they come in and there's 3 people that we've planted in the room, and they're all just sitting at these chairs reading, right? There's like 12 chairs here in a row. 3 people are there, and they're plants. When the candidate comes in, they'll probably sit in the 4th chair. And when they do, they're just there reading, and then eventually the showrunners start ringing a bell. So the bell rings, and then the 3 people will stand up. They don't acknowledge anything, they don't talk to each other, they don't whatever, they're just reading their thing, and then they stand up. It rings again, then they sit down. It rings again, and they stand up. And so the 3 people are doing this, right, kind of in unison to the bell. And so the thing they're testing is to see what the 4th person does, if they just start following along as whatever. So in the end of it, they start weeding out people who don't sit and stand to the bell, and they keep people who do sit and stand to the bell. And so at the very end of it, they get 10 people who just start doing this without ever being told to. And the whole thing is like the ability to be manipulated, the ability to be socially pressured, the ability to, you know what I mean? That whole thing. And anyway, it was like a super interesting, like, watch it and just kind of be like think that you'd be better than these people, but not really. Like, you know that you wouldn't be. You'd probably fucking kill that guy. You know what I mean? Pretty interesting. You should watch it.
I will give it a go after I finish Humankind.
Yeah, if you said you were looking for a show, so if you're looking for
I'm really looking for stuff to do after this.
Yeah, man, look up The Push on Netflix. It's pretty awesome.
Is it? I don't know if you watched it, but there was like a show where this like dude was trying to like help people, and then he staged like a zombie apocalypse to like help a dude with personal responsibility.
No, I don't know what that is.
I don't remember either. I watched it like in high school at a friend's house. So
faking a zombie apocalypse to help a person?
Yeah, basically it's like some dude who's like not super like personally responsible, and so like a psychological researcher or something like that, he like stages a whole zombie apocalypse just to make this guy like start to have a sense of responsibility. And it goes on for like a month or 2, and at the end of it the dude is like a changed person, which I imagine you would be if you thought the world ended and you're living in a zombie apocalypse wasteland.
Yeah, but what if that goes really bad and they have the mindset that I said I used to have, where it was like, oh, the world's over, I'm out of here. Like I'm not gonna try.
I don't think that they gave him a weapon. But also he was under constant surveillance, so I assume if he tried to off himself, somebody along the way would be like, "Sir, this is a Wendy's, please don't."
Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard of that, but that sounds kind of in the same way of like setting up a fake, like going very far to tell somebody that something is happening when it's not. Kind of like Nathan for you, like in the other direction. But yeah, that's all I had for my what's up notes. Other than that, it was just home game stuff for me this week.
That's also all I had. So you ready to move on then?
Yes, we are talking now about home game stuff, and I'm just realizing we don't have music for it, so I'm not going to pause. Home game stuff. Did you work on home game stuff?
Well, kind of, sort of. I looked through what I had done for Train Generation because I had taken a hiatus, basically. So I'm back on the horse, as it were. But most of my time was actually thinking about their donation button. But I see that's either very low on the list or very high on the list. I don't know. Maybe we should start with your stuff and then we can get to mine if we get to it.
Yeah, so yeah, the donation button I think is going to be probably the biggest part of this conversation today, but I just want to make it clear that that is not happening anytime soon. So yeah, like I mentioned at the start of the show last week, and also last week, I had this crazy list of like 20 different things of stuff that I wanted to get done generally like in 2021, but knowing that some of the stuff couldn't be done this year, so just stuff I wanted to do. So now I have kind of organized these things, not quite a stack rank, like first important, second important. I think I just have different tiers of what I think is important. So 3 different tiers. The majority of stuff is in tier 1. Donation button is in tier 3. So tier 1 is stuff that I think if I don't have them done by the end of this year, I will be disappointed. Like things that I think I need to have done in 2021. Tier 2 is stuff that would be really nice to have in 2021, but I'm not going to be sad if they're not done or whatever, or, you know, whatever. Kind of next year-ish type stuff, maybe. And then tier 3 is kind of one day type stuff. And there's less detail as I go into different tiers because either the ideas are fuzzier or they're just kind of more general things. Something like a mobile app is tier 3. We kind of know what that is, but I'm nowhere close to getting that actually done, so it's just someday type thing. So did you want to just like go through the tiers or what?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know. Yours, you have it highlighted and also in tier status, so I'll let you drive and I will make commentary where necessary or I think I can add.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah. So we have this Google Doc and I've highlighted things as Yazid mentioned. So some of these things are yellow, some of these things are green on tier 1. Yellow is stuff that I have some progress on currently happening, or at least some plans to get it happening, or there's something non-zero percentage complete there. The green stuff is things that I've already finished, and everything else is just stuff that's still to do. So my green stuff is objectification, which this was like more of just code cleanup stuff, but I put it as a bullet point because I did it this week. I finally pushed that change to change all of the squish JS parameters to be objects, so you can optionally pass in only stuff that you're using instead of putting a bunch of nulls and the positional arguments and stuff. Pretty basic, but finally got that in. Finally got the bezel finished, so I made the executive decision to just push that shit. I also fixed all the scaling math in the squisher. I made it way more simple. You can see behind me, this is actually the stuff that I was doing to figure it out. Really kind of banging my head on it, and I was making it more complicated than it needed to be. Anyway, figured all that stuff out. Bezel is in Home Games Master. And then game folders. I had this realization that every game that we have is just a single file, like game name.js. And any game that has any sort of real kind of modular logic to it, like pieces and large components, is going to have folders and directories and different files and stuff it's going to want to pull in instead of writing a massive JS file. So I updated to allow, or basically to change the structure. So it's like game name /index.js, and then you can import everything under there. Pretty minor, but that's also in master.
I like that change a lot.
Yeah, I realized that was like a minor thing. One of my previous managers would call that whatever, it doesn't matter. It's one of these things where you can easily get it done, and it provides a lot of value. So those were it for the ones that I actually finished. Everything else that is yellow is actually pretty close to done for the most part, but it's just not quite 100% finished. So for yellow stuff, the first one I have is stable/nightly builds. At the moment, if you go to builder.homegames.io, you'll see my little robit process that I have going that's building all these executables of home games. Basically, it's just a log of I built this commit at this time. Here's the binary for Windows and Linux and Mac. I think it has 3 builds at the moment in its history. And it's doing that. The only reason I have this yellow and not green is because I don't have the distinction between a stable and a nightly build. I just have everything that goes to master is getting seen by this thing. It's just every 5 minutes this node process is checking like, hey, what's the latest commit hash on master branch of home games? If it matches my last one that I've built, then I don't need to do anything. And if it doesn't match, then I just need to build it and then publish it. And that's all it's doing. Writing to a DynamoDB table to keep record of everything it's done, all that kind of stuff. So once I update to have the distinction between stable and nightly, it'll probably be a manual process to mark it as stable. And then it'll be like, oh, okay, this is a different type of thing. I'm going to not only build the binary, but also, promote it basically to this certain version of stable or whatever. And then related to that, but I haven't started the work yet, is to actually deploy that to Pico de Gallo. But that's kind of related to another point later, which is productionizing the infrastructure. But anyway, so the next yellow thing is RTC. I still think we should have at least a good working demo of everything with RTC. And if you'll remember from last time I did this, I had set up a proof of concept with RTC as a WebSocket or with a WebSocket fallback. But then the RTC stuff fell apart because we didn't have HTTPS. So kind of want to revisit that to see at least what we could get out of it.
So it sounds like HTTPS is probably like the next thing you would have to tackle then?
Yeah, so the HTTPS stuff is also yellow here. That stuff is done. It's just the code to use the HTTPS services is still super ugly, so I haven't pushed that yet. Or even put up a CR for it yet, or PR for it, code review / pull request. Anyway, so yeah, HTTPS is almost done, but it's also yellow here. There's still some stuff there I need to do. Another thing kind of related to that is I haven't marked it on this doc yet, but combining the executables is a big thing I actually decided I want to do. So at the moment we have the web server and we have the game server, and one of them serves up games and the other one serves up the web client. And it makes sense, and it made sense when I was originally building everything, but then I kind of realized these things are sharing most of the same dependencies. These things even share the same logic now to like get certificates on startup. They share the same certificate, like they need the same TLS certificate to run either of them. And they just kind of are the same thing. And also to simplify stuff for the ultimate like customer, saying, hey, yeah, here's this download of stuff. You have to run these 2 servers. If someone's trying to learn and get into it, they'll be like, fuck you. I don't know what this is. Why do I have to run these 2 things? If we could just combine it all into one thing you can download and run, that would make things easier. So I think in the HTTPS work, I'm going to also combine these executables because I'm duplicating the same HTTPS retrieval logic across both right now. So I might as well just combine them and then finish that stuff. So it's kind of like a big, weird interdependency thing graph of tasks. It's not really just like a list. But anyway, that's kind of all that stuff. 2 more things that are currently in progress. One of them is developer accounts. I have it in progress because I do want to just use the existing accounts that we already have, that I had already set up for the website redesign. So there's more work to be done there, obviously, to allow developers to have tools to do developer stuff, but the actual accounts themselves exist. And then the final thing is the website redesign. So with all this stuff, kind of having a new way to kind of tell everybody what this thing is, you know, kind of finishing up what that redesign looks like and all that. So that's all currently in progress. It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of interdependencies here. Like the HTTPS stuff blocks the RTC stuff, but when you do the HTTPS, like it sounds like there's going to be an enormous PR and then a follow-up fairly large PR to get RTC in. Is that incorrect?
The HTTPS stuff actually isn't that big because a lot of that work was just creating the services that do stuff, creating the certifier, creating the authentication service, creating the whatever else, all that stuff. And the authenticator, which I think I called it gatekeeper, but that stuff is done. It's in master, I believe. And like there was no pull request for that, but I guess I could. You can read that stuff if you want to. You know, it's kind of ugly and whatever. I can't make everything as good as I would want it to be like on the first initial thing, but it's good enough for production, at least at the moment. And then, yeah, so it was that. And then the certifier stuff, I think, is also already in master. So the actual change for HTTPS is going to be maybe a few hundred lines, but nothing crazy. I think the actual amount of changes that will come in will just be from the merging of Home Games Web into Home Games. But that code is already, like, you don't need to re-review it. It's just moving stuff over. Mm-hmm. And then the RTC one shouldn't be that much either. It's some kind of nasty code on the web client to do this stuff, and some not super great stuff on the Node server as well. But it's not a lot of code. It's just kind of ugly, complicated code. Yeah.
I see. Okay, so some complicated PRs, but not a lot of code to read through.
Yeah. There will be a lot of changes in the merging of the stuff, but that won't be a lot to actually review.
When you combine the two, would that have an effect on what the front, like basically like what the main web page has access to then?
When you say the main web page, what do you
I mean, like if I hit homegames.link, I go to what Home Games Web serves up, correct?
Yeah.
Right. But Home Games Web and the game server are separate. But now that they're combined, don't we now have a lot more utility that the web can serve to the front end UI?
A lot more utility.
Like something that we had talked about before was like if you moused over something, like changing it to the little like click hand instead of just the arrow, or having like little like helper text pop up or stuff like that.
We got the hover change stuff. Mm-hmm. We got, so that stuff like it mostly comes from the shared utility of Squish, like the fact that you could unsquish and all that kind of stuff and get those like boundaries of what's clickable and whether or not something can be clicked, like the client can calculate all that kind of stuff. It doesn't necessarily need to share the actual or know about the specific game logic, even though now it'll all be bundled together in one thing. I still want to have the separation of what actually accesses what. Mm-hmm. Like the web components are still going to talk to just the web components, and the link stuff is going to be just in the web stuff as well. Like only one of these servers will make the link connection. They don't both need to make the link connection. Like it'll just be kind of a consolidation of what's shared, you know.
Okay, so it's not like we're going to strip one down basically or anything like that. They'll both live on.
Yeah. It's just that the actual repo will be just Home Games, and that will be a thing where, and it'll be separate processes that are being run. It won't be one node process running multiple, like it won't be one process running multiple servers. It'll be separate node processes running a server each. So it's not like they're all getting bogged down by each other's stuff because it's all just single threaded or whatever. It'll be separate processes. There's going to be work to figure out how exactly to structure everything and make it, you know, a lot of code cleanup just to make it all make sense. And then also changing the way that we build binaries to make sure that that all works when you spawn like the main process, that it kind of kicks off everything as it should, because this main process will then start a game server and an app server, and then the game server can spawn child socket servers as well. So it's like this whole thing of servers that happen from this main binary. So I have to make sure that all works. So yeah, that's all work.
Okay, I see. I think I understand.
Yeah.
Or you missed a couple of things on here. So did you want to go through those ones as well?
Well, the other ones are stuff that I just haven't started yet. So this is all stuff that I just want to get done this year. Like I mentioned, stable/nightly Pico de Gallo. This is going to be probably managed by the same builder process that's currently just building binaries and publishing them. But this depends on... what does this depend on? Pico de Gallo. Oh, this depends on changing the infrastructure of Pico de Gallo to run on Amazon ECS. So we'll have just these tasks, which are essentially just Docker containers, and they're just running. And then this thing will, the builder will be able to say, oh, well, kill the current processes and then build a new Docker image with this thing, and then deploy run the container on ECS and swap out the one that's currently there. So that will first depend on me moving, like I said, Pico de Gallo to ECS. So that'll be some other work there. Other productionized infrastructure stuff, I guess I don't really know. Maybe I can put maybe I can move some other stuff behind a load balancer instead of just an IP to the DNS record. But anyway, whatever, some other kind of stuff like that. The authenticator service gatekeeper is already on a Lambda, so that should be pretty okay, at least for the time being, in terms of scalability. We don't need a lot of provision concurrency because there's not a lot of people signing in, but if that changed, we can just bump up that concurrency. Mm-hmm. Yeah, anyway. And then the other stuff was the asset service. So the thing that I mentioned last week, where once the developer has registered as a home games developer, then they're able to upload their own assets and say, I'm going to use these images, these sound files, and we would have some sort of way to say, by uploading this, you certify that you own this, so we don't get fucked because you uploaded the Green Mile or whatever as an MP4. So yeah, that'll be kind of a big thing. It shouldn't be too hard because it's just a wrapper around S3, but I think the interface that people use to upload and manage these assets is kind of the actual work here. So that'll kind of be website work, I suppose. The other thing is spectators. So this one shouldn't be too hard, but just adding the functionality. This was the thing I wanted from the beginning, but of someone to be able to just join the game, any game, and just watch, not play. So that shouldn't be hard, but we'll see when they actually get to implementing it. Next thing is Squish versioning. This is something I've talked about a few times before, but basically the client will need to be able to hot swap versions of Squish, the versions of the Squish game library that it's calling, all the functions that it's calling, based on what the home games game server is telling it that its game uses. So client connects, the dashboard is like, oh, I'm on Squish V3. The client says, oh, cool, I've got V3 locally. I'll call V3 when I call Squish anything. And then the user clicks on something in the dashboard to click or to go to a Clicktionary, and then Clicktionary is like, oh, I'm on Squish V2. The client's like, oh, I've got Squish V2. I'll swap out to Squish V2, and like that when it moves between different servers. So that one, I remember I tried getting that working, and then it gave me really strange JavaScript errors I had never seen before up to that point. So I was like, well, fuck this. So I never went back to it, so I got to revisit that. And hopefully that was just a weird other issue I was missing. Yeah, and so the next thing, this is I think the final thing I haven't mentioned, at least in tier 1, holy shit, performance profiling / minimum specs. So I think along with the RTC stuff, me kind of going deep into the networking processing of messages stuff in all the game servers, I'll be able to this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, but I just haven't really given it the attention that it needs, which is being able to, on any machine, determine what the bottleneck is. Like, I'm running home games and it's running like shit. Why? Is it because my game server is slow? Is it because my client is slow? Is it because my network is slow? Is it because, what's the problem? And that should be a generic thing for pretty much anybody to just use. I don't know what that will actually look like, if it's a separate standalone thing, or if it's just incorporated into home games, or what it actually is, but just a method for us to do that. And yes, that's it for everything on tier 1, I think, right?
Yes. I see. Okay. I guess with the performance profiling thing, is that going to include like optimization on our side, or are we going to just hold off on that until we see how other things shake out?
Yeah, the hope is that me being able to kind of diagnose problems on any setup will allow me to just optimize stuff across the board. So yeah, it's kind of the implication there is that optimization is like an ongoing thing. So just us having the tool to see when it's bad will help us fix it. But that's always going to be a thing. One of my favorite things is making stuff faster and then showing you on like a graph how much faster it is. So that'll always be a thing for me.
Nice. I was also going to say, I'm somewhat sure that even Discord uses RTC. So I think RTC is the end result, like best way to go.
Yeah, I think anything that has streaming of audio or video is RTC. And we're going to need to handle only game data with RTC, stuff like assets and stuff. There are basically two different tiers of messages. Stuff that needs to be delivered to the client no matter what, and stuff that could be dropped by the client. And stuff that could be dropped is stuff that we're going to use RTC for because it'll get there faster, but it might not get there. That's kind of the trade-off. And then the other stuff would be just directly over the socket, which is over TCP. The server can guarantee that the client gets it. That'll be for stuff like a video file that the game references, because we need to know that we have the file in its entirety. Otherwise, it's like, well, they might have half the video file. We don't know. It might be fucked. We don't know. Like, you know, so
ultra grainy Blair Witch Project style video playing.
Yeah. Like I think an example is the microphone that we have now on Pico de Gallo. That thing runs like shit because for several reasons, but one of them I think is because we need to pull the microphone data from the user and then send it over and kind of like large chunks to the server. And then the server then has to over TCP send it to everybody and say, okay, big chunk, big chunk, big chunk to everybody. And it runs like shit as you get more than two people over on it, more than two people connected to it. And Pico de Gallo is running on some server in the Bay Area. So it runs like shit when you have two people in Tucson talking to that, and it gets way worse than a local. Anyway, it's like a whole thing. So RTC is the thing. I just don't know how much it'll help us.
I got you. Okay. Understandable.
Did you say thunderstandable?
Fun?
Oh, okay. I hate them both, but okay. That's so am I just going to tier 2, or did you have like questions or what's the
I think I understand tier 1. Okay. Tier 1 sounds like this is the groundwork that needs to be done this year.
And I think it's all very doable. I have no worries about this stuff. Like half of this list is pretty much done. So secretly, tier 2 is tier 1 to me also. Don't tell anybody.
Whoa, no. We're going to keep those separate because I know
we'll keep them,
and your
we'll keep them separate, but
craziness that can sometimes take over. We're going to keep them separate. Got to keep them separated, as I've heard a song say.
That is from a song. I forget what song, though, but I know what you're talking about. Anyway, tier 2 is tier 2, but I would love it to be still 2021. Like I said, this is stuff where if we don't get to it in 2021, I won't be crushed like I would be if we missed a tier 1 thing, but I would also want these things to be done this year. And actually looking at it, I don't think it'd be that hard. So anyway, the first thing is dashboard searching / filtering. This is the thing that we mentioned last week because I don't really know what the overall community of this stuff looks like once people are actually using it, or if people ever actually use it or what. But just imagining a world where there's different types of games that people would need to access, and there's hundreds of games or dozens of games or whatever, and how people can access that stuff. So we need a method to search and filter the games available to play in the dashboard. Otherwise, people are just scrolling through menus and shit trying to find a fun, quick, easy game to play with their friends. That's kind of important to me. Next thing is social media API integration. This was kind of on a home games level built into the system and the tooling. We would have options to plug in your whatever API key for Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever, and we would have the APIs available in kind of a way that works well with the overall game engine. This is kind of a fuzzy idea at the moment. I don't really know what it would look like or how it would work, but something I think would be cool.
I think that one would benefit from when I finish the Twitter game. Because once
Yeah.
I finish the Twitter game, I think we'd have a pretty rock solid one. And once we have the HTTPS, this becomes significantly easier also.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a kind of down the road thing, not super urgent in my head. Next thing is client type awareness. Just something basic. I don't really know what this looks like specifically, but just knowing if someone has a touchscreen or a mouse, if someone has a keyboard or not, if someone is on a desktop would be nice. You know what I mean? Like just knowing something basic about the thing connecting to the game server. That way the game server would be able to say, oh, actually, if they're on a phone, do this instead of this. It opens the door for device-specific functionality that like can incorporate with games. Think about something where one person is on a desktop and they have kind of like a separate set of tools and whatever than everybody else who's on a phone. And the game kind of works with both of them required, but they all do different stuff. So we would need to be able to know what clients are connecting to us and what they can do. So that's kind of a big thing. The next thing after that is controller support. Like I mentioned, we have basic controller support today, and I wanted to go write that game library a couple weeks ago. Or, sorry, gamepad library. Jesus, I can't speak. And when I started writing that, I realized we needed HTTPS. So that's how I kind of got down this whole rabbit hole that I just came out of a couple weeks ago with HTTPS. So that one's minor. It's really just finishing up controller support. I guess I could mark it yellow because we kind of already have it, but the next thing is the save game / metadata service. So this was the other final tier 2 goal. Yeah, this one's really fuzzy because we have nothing where someone would save a game at all. But just thinking about in the future, if I have a game and I have something kind of more rich than just like a single session based thing, or I wanted something to persist. If you think about something like, oh, on your home games account, you've unlocked these appearance items for your character in this game. You would need to be able to save that somewhere outside of just storing it in a text file on disk, which you could certainly do, but it's not something that really like inspires trust in people if you're just saving a text file in someone's thing. So we would need a service for that to be able to manage that stuff and to make it easy for developers to interface with it. That's pretty important to me as well. Yeah, that's it for tier 2. Did you have any questions, or is that all pretty straightforward?
I think it's pretty straightforward. I think maybe I'm morally opposed to saving games in home games, but that might be a bridge we need to discuss later.
Yeah, so I'm against. I wouldn't say I'm against it. I get what you're saying though. Being able to save your game in home games seems to go against the idea of like an ephemeral game. When there's this stuff to persist, you would expect that from like Uncharted, but not from WarioWare. And so allowing someone to even save. But if you think about, like I said, the kind of unlocks the aesthetic stuff, or maybe if someone has a home games achievement dashboard, and this would be, like I said a few episodes ago, about how maybe users are really concerned about their privacy and they don't want to even be in a database outside of the core essentials of being able to log in because of the whole HTTPS thing, which I hope that we've explained why we need to do that in a way that like people can understand why we need to do it. You know what I mean? Like it's not just us trying to take your email address or whatever. So for people who don't give a shit about any of this stuff, they don't have to engage with it. But if they wanted to say, oh, well, I actually want a home games profile or whatever, and I want to have these achievements I can track, and I want to track what games I've played, and I want to, you know what I mean? Like someone who wants to have all this meta, you need to have a way to persist that and a way to manage all of it. Like you need a provider for all that data. So I think in a world where people like people actually use this, that's just a thing people would want, which is the ability to have the meta, even if it's not quite a save game. We need to have something there, you know.
Like I said, I think that maybe as we're gonna start that one, maybe we talk about kind of like how I want to lay that one out. Yeah, I think it's a tier 2 because it's also kind of fuzzy, because
I'm basically saying we just need a data store that a developer can access for users.
Mm-hmm.
That's super general, and we would need to be able to like consistently. We would basically just need to build an API to write and read this stuff that the website would be able to read to be able to display like achievements or whatever the meta is. But like I said, it's super fuzzy. I don't know what I want people to be able to do with it, and I don't really know the kind of bounds of what it should be doing. So it's just a very general idea.
That sounds like something I can PM. Valuable input to this team.
Yes. And then tier 3 stuff, this is the fuzziest of all of it. One of them, we'll get to the donation button. So one of them is local games. This is the thing I talked about a long time ago about we've built this set of tools and this game engine thing where we can say, here's this tree and here's this data that represents the tree and blah, blah, blah. Here's a game. If you wanted to have a game that used these tools but was not suitable for like a networked game, thinking about, well, if we have controller support and if we have this game engine, why couldn't we make a game that worked locally, like fully local multiplayer? There are 4 gamepads connected to this web browser, and people are playing a local multiplayer game on home games based on this event loop without networking. That seems like it could totally be done. So that's just a very general idea to see, what that would look like in the future. Mobile apps, like I've mentioned before, I think we need iOS and Android apps to take advantage of the hardware of those devices and to be able to, have the full screen instead of a browser window and be able to have access to the full power of the device instead of just what the browser lets us do. And that whole kind of a thing. It's going to be a ton of work, and in my head, these apps should be free, but in my head also, I might be thinking like, well, fuck, man. We need an upsell, like maybe like use the web app and it's free and available, but then we sell the app for $1 or some shit. Like, just money is a whole other thing, which we'll get to. But yeah, mobile apps I think is important. I think we'll need them. I think iPhones are here to stay, so we'll probably need something for those. And then the third and final thing in my tier 3 is a donation button. Yeah, I guess just to summarize this whole thing, I think it's super important to be able to, in order to support developers, if people want to. I think in my head, a big thing with why I do this podcast or why I like doing this podcast or why I think this is cool is because like we're building this thing and you kind of get to see how things work and how like we think about stuff and like really get to see the process down to me talking about like wanting to die or whatever, like just the real shit, you know what I mean?
There's nitty gritty and then there's this.
It's too real for TV. But yeah, no, it's just kind of like the transparency of like this is how we do stuff, personally how we do stuff. And I think a donation button allows people to like be very, what am I trying to say? Like hippie bullshit. I like the hippie bullshit, and I think a donation button is like, hey man, I'm vibing with this shit that you made, and like from a person to a person, I want to support you. I think that's just super important. And so a donation button I think is super critical to me to be able to support that stuff in some way one day with this platform, to be able to get somebody to say, hey, I don't actually know anything about JavaScript. I don't know anything about this, but I used your platform and I played these games and I realized that I actually think I can do this, and then oh shit, I built this thing in my free time, and oh shit, I kind of learned how to program in the process, and oh shit, I can get donations through this thing, and like to me that's all good. Like that sounds fucking amazing. So I think it's important. Like I said last week, I think it should be in a consistent place in the same way that a home button is on an iPhone. You always know that this is here to be able to do this one thing.
Yeah, so I agree with everything you said, including liking the hippie bullshit. But I did some digging into how Roblox does it, and if I am correct, last week what we were talking about was basically like, let's say I put out a game, Joseph puts out a fix for that game. Does he get part of the donations when people donate to my game. The way that Roblox does it is that no, he wouldn't get money. I would get all the money. And his option is he can basically make a fork of my game. So if people don't know, like GitHub terms or like Git terms in general, like you can take somebody's code and what's called fork it, which is basically just like clone it, make some changes and push it up as your own. So basically the way that Roblox handled it is that you can have hundreds of the same game just with like minor adaptations. And I kind of like that approach for two reasons. One, I think it gives value to the people who like made the game, but on the other hand, it's like this weird evolution thing of like, oh, this person made like a slight change and the game was like way better, so people are buying, like putting money into that game, and then somebody made a slight change on that one, and then like that one is now getting all the money, and eventually like you just see like games evolve and the strongest survive in a way. The most fun get the 6th gorilla.
It seems tough though. I mean, just trying to see it from the perspective of someone, if I go and I make the home games Mario, and it's like it's the thing that makes people care about this, and then someone is like, oh, it'd be a lot better if we made this small change, and then they go and do that, and then this person's making money off of this and like that's when you need like IP and copyright laws and shit. That's why that stuff exists, because this person who made this idea that you're building on top of, that you're now getting paid for, this person owns some part of what you're doing, and they should. But the question is how much. I think it's just tough to think about money at all in that way. So I guess to remove money for a second, if you think about just ownership of the game, every fork, every permutation, everything based off of this code should always credit the person who made it, who I'm forking it from. Like if you go to GitHub, like an important thing about forking something is that all the history is preserved. If I go and I fork Yazid's code, it says it was forked from Yazid's thing, and if you go through the commits, it's all Yazid's commits. That stuff is there. It's based on top of that. So that's important to always preserve like the history of where this thing came from. And so if in home games it's like, okay, well here's Mario, this permutation of Mario made by this other guy, I don't think that person should be able to get a donation for that. I think a fork of a game should be a special case. It's like more of an experimental thing. Here's like everything is community based. This is my perspective. Everything is community based in the sense that everybody making this game, everybody making a game doing this thing is the community. Publishing a game and making it available in home games is like, this is my thing. You can have a separate kind of community based thing on top of that, which is like community forks of an existing thing. But the existing thing is the main thing. It's like the canonical version of this thing. You can go into the experimental parts where you can play different community members' versions of this game. But if you want to play the original thing and donate to the original thing, go to this original thing. Giving the second guy money for what the first guy mostly did feels wrong to me.
I don't know if I agree or not. I mean, I think that in terms of like ownership, you are correct. But in theory, like people who put stuff on home games are putting it out on an open source platform, implying that they don't have ownership of it.
They do have ownership. It's just that it's... Well, see, this is when it gets to laws and shit. I don't know. But to me, in a perfect world, like, you should own this stuff in the sense that you always have, like... it's always attributed to you, and it's always like used with your permission or whatever. Like there's some licensing thing, but not like when I say use with your permission, I mean the implication when you put something in home games is that people are going to play this shit, and people will take this code and people will modify this code. That's implied, but you own it in the sense that like it's yours. I don't know.
Listen, yeah. I agree with you that they should carry the name on, so it should be like in the description, like originally from like, you know, XYZ's version of this game. But I think it incentivizes people to keep their games up to date and to compete with if people are going to be making like adaptations on their game. Like if somebody makes Mario 64, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're the original person who made it, and then somebody takes that game and then replaces Mario with Luigi. Maybe then you can go like, well, what if I made a version of the game where you get to pick between Mario and Luigi, and now you're the front runner again. And it's like, in a way, it's like a competition internally of like who can make the best game.
This sounds like a total mess because at the end of the day,
yes. It is
at
Roblox, yes.
At the end of the day, I made the characters, I made the world, I made the mechanics, I made everything. And someone added some layer of bullshit on top, and now they've outclassed my entire game. People donate to them and I get none of it. And then you get into the percentages. It's like, okay, well, what percentage of the game is it worth now? Do you have to programmatically determine that? Do you have to just always give it a set value? We have to case by case human it out and be like, well, that's about a 15% value.
I don't. Right that last one I don't want to do
that
because
shit.
It's gonna come down to you and or me, and I don't think you or me are
that's what I'm saying.
Invested enough in financials to understand that.
Well, it's all just bullshit. It's like all the value stuff is just based on like someone's perception of what the value is. It's like, I don't want to make that decision. I can't. I shouldn't make that decision. I don't want the decision to even need to be made. Like, this is the thing I mentioned last week. I don't want to have to solve those problems. They just shouldn't come up. So that's what I'm saying. To have this thing of like, this game is different every 2 weeks because people keep competing to just add new things that people think that they want. Like, that doesn't sound good to me. I think, how about if someone wants to fork a game, and keep in mind this is different from changing the existing game. I think if I go to someone and I say, hey, here's this bug in your game, I want to fix it, we should in the home games UI credit this person in the commit thing, whatever. Like, we should get the set of people who have made changes to this game and credit them in the UI. But if someone actually forks it and they want to put that into home games, I think a prerequisite there is that the original game owner needs to approve of it.
Ooh.
Because if you take my game and you fork it and you do all this crazy shit to it, I should be able to say, no, you fucked my game. And you know what I mean? This gets so hairy. This gets so weird.
Okay, look, my approach is literally the Roblox approach, which is a mess, where you have 100 versions of the same game.
No, I don't want that.
But then the best game, but then we add a rating system, and then the best rated game is the top version of that game.
I'm okay with having a lot of games and having a rating system. The thing that's really weird for me is the barrier between how much someone can contribute to your game. We can do something like you need to have a GitHub team, or you need to have users associated to your developer group, and then these people can can change these games, like are allowed to change these games. It's really weird. There's no like good option in my head.
There isn't a good option. That's why I think that the Wild West is the optimal solution here.
No, it's crazy how you're like the ultra capitalist in this argument. It's normally the other way around.
I know it is a different position. My thing is that I think for the most part, the kind of commits that a not creator would try to make is a minor bug fix. Okay, and I think most of those people would be like, I just want to play this game, but when you touch the red block with the blue block, the whole screen turns purple, and I don't know what's going on anymore. So here's a fix to solve that. And I think that they would put that fix into the original game as opposing to making their own game, because it doesn't make sense to make the same game just plus the fix.
But those people wouldn't get that.
Right, and so my idea would be like that they wouldn't get paid, and they wouldn't get paid to do that. That's just like a kindness of their heart thing. But if somebody, for example, made, like I have Square, if somebody took my Square code but made frog sprites or like turkey sprites for it and called it Turkeyer, that's fine. That's not a bug fix. That's fine. I think that my view of how the donation button should work is that I would get donations if people play Square and like it and put money towards it. But Turkeyer, I wouldn't get any donations, but my name would be in there as part of the commit history, and also as they have to say we use the original work from Yazid. I think to me, that's fair in that it's hard to come up with like how much value is the code they submitted, because somebody could make a one-line change, but that one line as a bug fix could be worth the entire game. Because if somebody, for example, forgot to let you go past level 3, which I have done on Square, it doesn't work anymore. You know what I mean?
Yes, but think about the scenario where home games is popping. There's a million active users every week. It's amazing. Joseph and Yazid are famous. Everything is happening.
This podcast is zooming off into the stars. We have guests on,
Yeah, Joe Rogan's our guest. But so this is all happening, and someone develops a game that just goes crazy. It's the thing for 6 months. It's all over everything. They're popular. They're actually making a living with this donation stuff, and they're paying their bills with home game stuff. This is a very far-fetched whatever, but just follow me, right? Someone else goes and takes their game and they make some sprite changes, and people play that one a lot more because it's funnier, whatever. It's got goatee images and people love it.
Jesus.
Because that one is now popular, no one's playing the non-goatee edition. So this person is getting pretty much all the money that people were donating, all that traffic, all that hype, all that buzz is coming to the person who just copied and pasted your whole shit. And that's like free market, man. That's what the market wants. Fuck the old guy. I get it, man. I get it. I love capitalism. But also that sucks ass. Like, that doesn't sound right to me.
I mean, the other side of it is that you and I do have to approve the commits. So
we can't be the bottleneck though. Think of a world where we're both dead. How does this work? Like, how does this system work?
Then the dude who made the game and is making a living off of it should try to become an admin on home games proper. If he is making a living off of home games, he should make an effort to work on home games. Like, he should become like you and me level of like, we're reading through pull requests, we're moderating, like we're doing all of that shit. And so he should be like, I'm making a living off of home games. I want to work more closely with the main developers. And then he can be like, this game is just a copy of my game. And you and I should also be able to say, like, this game is just a copy of this game, but they just changed the sprites.
No, but
and then we can contact them and be like, hey, is that all the change? Is that it? Like, is that all you've done is just take an existing game and make the change? Because if so, like, we have some questions for you.
That's us.
But if you and I are dead, no one can commit to home games repo.
That's what I'm saying. We need to. If we're building something where 1 million people can use it in a week, we cannot be the bottlenecks like that. Like, this thing has to go without us. This thing has to be able to sustain without us. Like, it's more of a.
Then we need moderators.
No, dude, you cannot have these disputes, because at the end of the day, it will always be a person with some sort of bias or some sort of personal thing that will fuck up the process.
And that's okay in this case, because if we don't, somebody's going to push shit to the home games repo. You don't understand. You can't not have somebody review what goes into the home games core. If somebody pushes something bad into Squish, that's untenable to allow.
Okay, so this is different. So home games core, yes, this core set of tools and libraries that is the platform home games, yes. This stuff will always need to be managed by people. When we're dead, it'll be someone else. Or whatever, not dead, whatever, that's dark. But
we're both dead because we're about 60.
But the game part, the things that that are using this platform, the platform is us. Yes, I understand that. That'll always be people. Yes. Home games team. Yes. Whatever. Games are not that. Games, guy who made game using our platform is making a bunch of money and he's making a living, and some other fucker rips him off and is allowed to get donations for their ripoff. Like, what if Every game that's forked has a very clear user interface saying originally made by this person. This is forked from this person.
Mm-hmm.
Click here to see this person's profile. Click here to donate to this person. Click here to whatever. Give them full credit. And okay, follow me here. Okay. You give them credit. And you also say how much in terms of actual, no, I don't like this. I'm saying of code changes, how many changes they made to it to try to quantify. I don't like this. I don't like this. Okay. So how about
Also,
fuck all that?
I want to go back to a second.
Yeah.
We will always need people to review games that enter home games.
We will always need, yes.
We always will need people to do that.
We will, but that's...
It's either you and me and or other people who do that as well, because we need to make sure that those games aren't doing anything that breaks our TOS. And if they do, we need to let the person trying to get it in know that it would break our TOS and they need to make a fix before it's put in. Now, a TOS could be super simple, but regardless, they can't be putting in something that would get us in legal trouble.
I understand. I'm saying our terms of service should be structured in such a way that it never comes down to a human being trying to determine the line of ownership between different games and who gets what value of what. That's what I'm trying to solve for.
Yes, I agree with that, yes.
So, okay, if it's... I'm trying to say that an informed donator, an informed customer will make the decision that they want to themselves. They should be able to say, well, I like this tweak of this game, but I really like the original base that it's created from, and I get to see all this kind of stuff. So part of me, I was just thinking, what if we just have a straight up flat, no dispute, whatever, a rule of a forked game gets 50% of what it's forked from, or vice versa. If I donate to a forked game, the forkee gets half.
I think that we would need to be careful with that, because then the solution would be that I fork my own game.
What? Why would you fork your own game?
Because then I get the full amount. So basically you make a game, I fork your game, and then I fork my fork. And so now that doesn't trickle down to you, it just goes to me and stops.
Unless we chain it so you only get 50%.
Nah, see, that becomes progressively harder, and also that math goes to infinity, so...
Fuck. No, I just... Okay, the thing in my head right now is saying, okay...
The math goes to 1. I lied to you. That math goes to 1.
The thing in my head that I think is correct is a donate button for the person. The person can fork a game and get the full donation money, but we as the platform developer need to make it abundantly clear to the consumer that this is what they are donating to, and this is who is getting the money. This is not who's getting money. And when something is pulled or copied from someone else, it needs to have that history, and then it needs to be, we basically just need to traverse the get history. Okay, well, this was created by this person, this was forked by this, so that way the person can be informed and say, well, I love this game, but this person who made the original actually deserves my donation. And hopefully people are just more aware of that.
Yeah, I like that approach. I think we should 100% require that if you're forking a game, you need to be very upfront that you're forking the game, what game you forked,
well, no,
where
I don't
they
mean,
can go to donate it.
The people can't. Well, yeah. The game developer shouldn't have to do anything, though. If they fork a game, that should be a thing that we provide to say, okay, well...
No, I'm saying that in the metadata for the game, like in the about of the game, they should include somewhere this game was forked from, and then the original game. Like this game is based on and this original game. I think that has to be as upfront and as honest about it as possible. Well, otherwise you can hide that down the line, you know.
Well, I'm trying to think of a way to programmatically do that. So it's like something in the UI even can be like, just thinking
the hit get.
Well, just like spitballing the idea of someone's playing home games. Someone is, whatever, going through the dashboard. They see a game. They're like, oh, this game's super fun, oh, whatever. And they go to the dashboard, and then it's like, you can hit a button and create, like, clone this yourself, like, fork it. And so then it downloads, like, it'll create your branch, like some namespace branch for you. And then, like, here's your thing. You can go and do this, but we have the metadata to know that this person is forking this off of this, and this branch will always be associated to this other thing, and then we'll know that when it's merged that this was from this. And, like, we need to be able to track that history. We can't just use the honor system because, yeah, people lie. Fucking, it sucks. But, like, we would need a thing to say, okay, well, if you're forking a game, this is the official way. If you're not forking a game, everything you're writing is original or whatever, and you promise that's true, however you promise it. But
if you break TOS, you have to pay us back.
Well, this is such a hard thing because, like, it's talking about money that isn't, like, we're talking about people who don't exist spending money that we cannot yet process to go to games that are not yet there. So it's, like, really hard to think about this.
I think even if we're thinking not in terms of money, but in terms of, like, kudos, like, imagine a rating system where there's, like, stars. If the more people like, all right, not stars, let's do, like, a like button. The more people who like a game presumably would have a way of sorting by likes. So the more liked game we get to the top. So if you really just want people to play your game, you need to have likes. The most fun game in theory would have the most likes. So...
But isn't that subject to manipulation, though, just like anything with like buttons on the internet?
I think it wouldn't be as easy because we would just put it behind you have to be the, like, basically, like, the person with the account is the only person who can like it.
Yeah, but make 10 accounts. Hey, all my friends make 10 accounts like my game. I have 100 likes.
That's true, but we also now have 10 more accounts.
Yeah, but that's bullshit accounts. Like, that's not good.
I know, but that's not, we can't do anything to prevent that.
Says who? Be the change you want to see in the world, Yazid.
All right, we do the parlor, and they take a picture of the front and back of their driver's license picture, and we track their location at all times to make sure they're in the... No, I don't know, man. I don't see... Basically, what what comes down to is I don't see a way of easily regulating and making sure the money goes to who it probably should go to. In terms of, like, if I made 99% of a game and you made a one-line fix and made your own game, like, yeah, I think it'd be difficult to say, like, how much value is that one-line fix without a person looking at that code and then assigning a numeric value to it. And I don't think that's appropriate because that introduces a person bias. That's what I was saying. Like, I think it might be better just saying, like, being upfront about who you got the original game from if you're going to fork it. But like I also said, in my head, the people who actually make games for home games are probably not the same people who make games for Roblox. They're probably the kind of person because they either they're in an open source community, because Roblox is an open source. It's an open source community. They're probably going to just make the fix on that person's game. And the only time somebody would fork the game is if they really wanted to take, like, imagine if somebody made, like, a version of Mario and then they wanted to make Mario World out of it, basically. Mm-hmm. And so they would fork that game and then make Mario World on top of it. And is that a valid fork? Yeah. Should the original person get money? I don't know, because at that point they made so much additional stuff on top of it. Is it fair to say, oh no, you only get like 25% of that money or whatever, or even 75% of it? I don't know. And then how do we do that? I think me, it makes more sense to just say, like, your game, you get the money, but you need to be as upfront as humanly possible, like scream it off the top of buildings that your work is based off of somebody else's work. Because even their work eventually is going to be based on the work of you or me. So all of that has to stack up all the way down to you or me at the end of the day.
Well, not really. I mean, it's not like the guys who made Uncharted are like, shout out to Mark Cerny for designing the PlayStation. It's really all on him. You know, like...
Well, yeah, but it's a little bit different because
it kind of is.
It kind of is, but it kind of. But what I mean by that is, like, nobody who's making a game is making a game like out of nothing. Like, all of it's built on, like, the tools and stuff that you and I have cultivated over, like, however long it takes to get to that point, if that makes sense. Because for a while it's just going to be you and me making stuff and, like, making tweaks until it finally, like, picks up, you know?
Yeah, but yeah.
But then and then I don't know. to me, it's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I don't want to have any human beings making any determination on value or ownership. So I think ultimately the best thing to do is to trust the person donating to do what they want to do with their money. We just need to provide the tools and information to make sure that they're as informed as possible when they actually do that. And I think that the whole, like, yeah, you could trust people and whatever to say that they're forking a game, but we as home games need to provide that information to say when a game was forked from another thing. We need to provide the official medium for someone to fork a game and track that history in a way that makes it obvious when a game is forked. Because, yeah, and also to attribute credit when a game is changed or an existing game is whatever, and all this kind of stuff. Like, we need to just make the information there. We just need to be transparent and trust the people using the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Fuck. Okay, yeah, that is fine. But again, that's like way down.
That's way down the line, and we might have to come back to this and discuss it again and again and again. I imagine this is one of those things where you and I are going to have a bunch of conversations about it until we finally settle on something.
Yeah, we'll have a realization like, oh shit, taxes or something.
Taxes. Oh, God, no. That does throw a wrench. I don't know how Roblox handles that.
Probably through some fancy corporation structure thing that we don't have.
Yeah, but if like somebody makes the game in India and they're getting paid in US dollars, how do they pay taxes through it to provide them a W-2 in India?
Oh shit, I guess we would have to provide everybody who gets a donation a tax document?
We would, yeah.
Oh, fuck. I don't want to think about that at all.
Or we just use a service that does it for us.
Even then, it's still like we would need a corporation. We would need a corporate thing behind it. Like, yeah, it's so hard. Like, one of these days,
we got to sit down with a lawyer.
Yeah, we're really gonna have to fix a lot of these fuzzy.
If anyone's listening who is a lawyer, and you want to do some help with home games, just hit us up. The other option is that Joseph becomes a lawyer.
Yeah, I'll just take Coursera classes and become a.
I was thinking you just attend law school, but that works too.
Nah, fuck that. I'm never going back to school. One last thing I had about, well, not one last thing, but one more thing I had. So on my list last week, I had how it works videos, like super quick, like bite-sized videos about our infrastructure or just general components and how they work. That's kind of an ongoing thing. It's not a certain priority. I just think it's something that we should do as often as we can. When something is like super finalized and clear of what it is and what it's doing, and you know the idea is there's no fuzziness around it, then we can be able to do a video to describe how it works. And then, so this was my final topic. I was thinking for games that I make, and I know I mentioned I'm not making any games, I make tests, but I do need to make tests that sometimes have like mechanics in them, which to the point where they technically need to become games. So something like what is it? Like an achievement. If I wanted to have an achievement system where I can track some sort of metadata about a game and what a player has done in a game, I would need a game to be able to do that. Something like an unlockable customization option or something like that. So I was thinking I need like a mascot for my games, and I don't know why I was thinking of this, but like, what's the home games Mario, you know? And so like one of my favorite breakfasts in my family is eggs with cut up hot dog in it, like scrambled eggs with cut up hot dog. So we call it Huevito and Weenie, right? Like Huevito.
I knew Huevito in small egg.
Yeah, it's little egg. Like Ito makes anything small. Like mijito is like my little boy or whatever. It's like un poco is a little bit, but un poquito is a tiny little bit. Anyway, so Huevito and Weenie is what we call it. And I thought that'd be a really funny like tag team duo for my characters that I put in different tests and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I have a horrible little sketch of an Eggman, but I was thinking that his unlockable would be
He looks kind of like the lemon head dude.
Yeah. Also, do you like my dog?
Oh my god, that is a dog. I thought that was a cylinder and you were practicing drawing the weenie. That cracks me up.
Anyway, so
see what I did there?
Cracks me up. Nice. Nice.
Hey.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that'll be my little guy. He'll have unlockable hats. That'll be his thing. That'll be my way to test my unlockable system service thing. But that's my mascot.
If we ever do have like an image signature, I'm gonna use my little blue and my teal and white background thing that I use everywhere. For
teal
sure.
and white background thing.
Yeah, like if you look at my Discord, like that's my little icon on like everything.
I can't see it right now because I'm recording the thing, but I have never noticed it before, so I'm a terrible friend, I guess.
Like you never set your Discord image. You're still the little like Discord dude in the orange circle.
Yeah, you know who the fuck I am. You don't need an image on my Discord.
I do know who you are. But I think that's cute. I like it. Yeah. I like the Huevito and Weenie.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I have to get better at drawing dogs, but yeah.
Listen, you can't get worse, so.
Thanks, bud.
Nice.
Yeah,
do you have anything else for? Nice. You ready to move on to Song of the Week?
Song of the Week. What was your Song of the Week?
My Song of the Week is my favorite song of all time, Intro by the XX.
It's your favorite song of all time?
It's my favorite song of all time.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I listened to this. I'm familiar with the XX. I like Jamie XX because of that song with Young Thug. And I tried listening, I think, to the album that this song is from before, and I couldn't really like super get into it. I guess I don't get this song, the intro. It's an intro to their album, and it's their most popular song on Spotify. I think it's got like 300 million plays. It's 2 minutes long, and it seems like it's setting up for an album. Like it feels like an intro, but it doesn't feel like anything I would listen to outside of playing the album front to back. So I just like didn't get it.
I understand. For me, it captures. This is kind of like a hard thing to explain. It captures the emotion I feel and like the feelings I have. Right, there's like that millisecond when you're like. Before like conceptually starting something and then starting something, there's like that millisecond in between as you like swap between like thinking about starting something and then like actually doing it. And I think the song captures that moment really well. Like what I would describe it as is like counting down like 3, 2, 1, and it's that like millisecond right before you say one. It's just like it's like that like 1 millisecond, but like blown out over the course of the song. So like in my head, whenever I hear that song, I think about like that moment that I'm holding a rock, like I'm standing at the bottom of a rock climbing wall, and I have my hands on, and I have one foot on, and I'm about to like pull my weight up to like get my other foot on the wall, and it's that like split second between me committing to doing this action. It's kind of hard to explain, but that song like captures that moment for me like perfectly. I listen to that song right before any plane I've ever been on has taken off, or any road trip I've ever gone on. Like right before I like leave for that road trip, that's the song I play. I don't know why. It's just like that song captures motion to me.
That's so interesting how a purely instrumental song can have such a very specific emotional response from you. That's cool. Yeah, I guess I just didn't. That stuff didn't really click. It just kind of sounded like it was a setup for more music that didn't come, which is what an intro is, you know.
Yeah, I think for me, because I don't listen to music while I do like physically demanding things. So for me, like that perfectly, like it cuts off and it's like you're ready for more stuff, but there's no more music. So now you're performing the action. I don't know, like that song fits for me, that emotion, like that moment, like split millisecond as muscles like tense up and like neurons fire and you're just like getting ready to like pull yourself up onto the wall. It's just like that moment, but blown out over like 1:40 or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I guess people agree with you because that is their most popular song, which is just wild to me.
It kind of is. I love that song so much.
Nice. Well, I'm glad I got to experience your favorite song of all time.
Thank you.
My song of the week. I can't say the name of this person. I don't know how to say it. Conta Christ. Something. The song is called Melody from Heaven. This was like a weirdo like weeb channel that I found myself on YouTube in high school, and they were just playing a bunch of like J-pop, or I don't even know what this is, but it's just like an instrumental cutesy fucking EDM-y type song.
I really think this is like OG like 1990s techno, dude. Like 2000s 90s techno.
All I know is that there was one night where I was just hyped as fuck, and I played this song on repeat. I started doing jumping jacks to it in high school, so I was just going super hard in my room to like, you know what this sounds like. So to a certain, there was a tempo to it, you know? It was really fun.
Yeah. This song, I've heard this song before.
Yeah.
Seeing you pick this song, there was like a moment of like dissonance where I think my brain turned off for a second. I was like, because I normally just like copy and paste what you have in to find like a YouTube video, and then I also paste it with the word lyrics afterwards so that I can find the lyrics to whatever rap song you picked. And I did that just kind of like manually, and I was like, there are no lyrics to this song, and I was like, huh? And I looked back and I was like, huh?
That's funny. We both picked purely instrumental songs. I don't know what made me think of this. Like, I haven't heard this song in years, and for whatever reason, I just think of it every now and then. Just the song. The song. It gets stuck in my head, and it's like truly one of my favorite songs ever. But it kind of got lost to time, and so I finally looked it up on Spotify, and I found it again, and I was jamming. So that was my song of the week.
I respect this one a lot. I listen to this song. I know the emotion behind this song. It's a good song. It's a fun song. It's just so surprising. I never would have. If I was going to pick songs that I listen to that you also listen to, this wouldn't be on that list.
Yeah.
This is, like, I would never have put this song as a song you listened to and liked.
Yeah, it's definitely not like a lot of the music I listen to, but this shit knocks. You know what I mean? It just it goes very hard still.
It does.
That's all I really care about.
I like it. I like it. It definitely threw me for a loop, though. My mechanicalness of listening to your music got thrown off, and I had to pause a bit.
All these months of Song of the Week, and I still know how to surprise you. Yeah, that
Truly. Do you have anything else for this one, then?
I didn't. That was all. It was very home games heavy. You said it would be short. I think we're at like 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever said it's going to be a short one, and it actually turns out to be a short one. Amazing. Thanks, everyone, for listening. As always, our music was done by our friend Tynan, or at Nitan on Bandcamp. That's at NYTAN on Bandcamp. And you can catch us on Twitter at HomeGamesIO, or email us at podcast at homegames.io, or hit us up on our website, homegames.io.
We are not on Parler. We'll see you next week.
See ya.